Hi, Jason Spangler back with another unboxing. This one's a little untraditional. I've done this before, but whenever I get a box from Nebraska from Bill Chaddock, I have to unbox it and show it to you guys because I'm so happy to get this box. Let me cut into it and I'll tell you why I'm so excited. All right, got the box here. Bill padded it really well. Let me tell you a little bit about the story just to kind of set the stage before I show you what I got in the mail from Bill. So, not long ago, I heard from a gentleman who was in Amarillo, Texas, and he had what he sort of called his Scout Museum, which was really a room above his garage that had all of his Scout stuff there. And we had talked a long time ago, maybe a year or two ago, about potentially me buying the collection, but he actually mailed me pictures in the mail, like old-fashioned camera, go to CVS and get printed out. But we weren't able to make a deal or anything. But he reached back out, and he was getting older, and he didn't want his family to have to deal with the situation if something happened to him. And so I'm always sympathetic to that message. And so started talking to him again, and it kind of became clear that the only way to make a deal would be to like literally fly to Amarillo, Texas, rent a U-Haul truck, drive everything back to North Carolina, 19 hours, plus stops, plus, it would have just been really ambitious, too ambitious for me to pull that off. And so instead, what I offered to him was I said, let me kind of put the word out on the internet, on Facebook, in my newsletter, and try and find you someone who could help. Someone local, who could do that. So I did. I followed up. I've sent several people's contact information, at this point, I can't tell you that I know someone has purchased everything and bought it. But in doing that, I did tell him. I said, hey, in your pictures that you sent me, I see there are some hand axes in the collection, and I said I would be interested in buying those, even though they're not in great condition. But I have a guy in Nebraska who I would like you to mail them to so that he can kind of refurbish them for me. And this guy was very accommodating, so I sent him payment for the axes, and then I made sure everything was good with Bill. I had the axes went from Amarillo, Texas to Nebraska to Bill. Bill got the axes and sent me lots of pictures as he was going back and forth getting these rehabbed. I'll definitely show the pictures here so that you can see the original condition that these were in, because some of them literally were the hand axe with metal handle and no wood or anything. And Bill has changed that. So let me pull back the curtain here and show you these axes. All right, so one of the things that Bill does is he makes his own sheaths. The sheaths that these originally came with were pretty flimsy, and because this axis, I mean, all these axes I think are older than I am. So these are all like, well, I'll tell how old I am, but let's just say they're like, pretty old. So the sheaths just do not last on these guys. So Bill makes his own sheath, and then he has a little leather stamp there that's pretty cool. So what he does with some of them, he kind of evaluates each axe and says, this is what I think should happen with this axe. So this one you can see, for example, it's a pretty normal handle here. He would just polish it up and just kind of get it looking good. But this is kind of where the magic is with Bill, is what he does to the head. So again, I don't know what kind of magic he uses, but he kind of evaluates each axe. And so this one is a plum. So I'm sure many of you who are scout collectors already know that. There you can actually see here, well, I don't know if you can see, but there is a Boy Scout symbol there. And so that says plum. And he's got it all polished up and it looks beautiful. So to me, this was an axe that was used. It was chopped up, beat and used. Ended up in this collection in Amarillo, and now it's a beautiful, beautiful hand axe. It's actually very sharp too. I try to avoid rubbing my finger across there because I'm a little worried what might happen. So this one did not look this pretty when I sent it to Bill. This is probably the one that is the most incredible transformation of all. And again, I'll show you the original picture of this axe, and then I'll let you see. So take a look at this handle that Bill created for this axe. All of that wood that you see is his craftsmanship. He created that. These little blocks he put on here, he sanded them down, sanded them down, sanded them down, added this wood here, and then with his sort of eye for color, He added this red coloring here and then made it pop here. It says, made by Vaughn. This is a Vaughn company made this hand axe. And then of course here it says Boy Scouts, official Boy Scout axe. So again, super cool. This is probably the one in the collection that I'm going to keep just because I know, and again, I'll show you the picture. I know how far this axe came from just being kind of almost something someone would throw away maybe to being something that's just absolutely beautiful. And again, Bill Chaddock little touch there with the little red, which I just think is just super, super cool. So we actually, I'm in a book club with some other resellers, and we read this book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I highly recommend it. And there's kind of this story in there that we use this as a metaphor for. I used these Scout hand axes as a metaphor for. And it basically is something to the effect of if you want to chop down a tree, then you should spend. What was it? Something. Oh, there was a story. It was something about it took a guy 6 hours to chop down a tree. But anyways, essentially, you should, if you want to chop down a tree, you should spend 4 hours, sharpening the axe, and then the 2 hours to cut down the tree. So sharpening the axe is kind of an analogy to making yourself, being a lifelong learner, improving yourself, and all those kind of things. And so some of my reseller friends, they've seen me talk about this idea of the axe, which again, Bill helps me with. All right, got a couple more in here. And there are people who collect Scout hand axes. Some of them probably look at what I'm doing with these axes and probably are like, no, it's not original anymore. But I still think it is. I mean, this is a plum as well. You can see here, it's got it all polished up. And every once in a while, these will have been so worn down that a lot of the stuff here, the actual imprinting, the etching will have been gone. But in this case, we can still see that. So you have Bill with an original sheath that he's made, and there's a beautiful plum axe. And then here is another one. Again, a lot of these are going to be plums. Slide this off. So again, another beautiful plum head there. And this one has a little different. It's got this little small BSA logo that you can see right there. And again, so he'll kind of match up the color. So this one had a little bit of the writing still on it from original. And so he left that. He didn't want to cover that up. So that's not something he did, but he did get this handle looking nice and pretty. And he keeps going because altogether we have 6 X's. All right, so here's the last 2. I think these are called Bridgeports. And the way you can tell them is by the handle. It's sort of the style of handle. It's different than the other one here. So see here, Bridgeport, yep. So this one, you can see that Bill painted it black. He did all the stuff, but he painted it black, and that is probably because this one, the scout symbol was pretty worn down, and you couldn't see it very well anyways. So it presents a little bit better with this black coming all the way up in here, and right there on that back, you can see he's still got the shiny spot there. So just a beautiful piece. And he's kind of a artist. He sort of if you ever engage him in one of these projects, he'll kind of ask you like, what would you like on the handle? And you can see here he'll take some sort of liberty with his artwork to kind of give you a beautiful looking handle. So again, just a beautiful axe that's been saved. And then here's the last one. Again, I think this is going to be a Bridgeport just based on everything there. And so yep, that's a Bridgeport. And you still see the scout symbol there. And this one's got everything looking good. So these are 6 beautiful axes that I now have. So what do you do with 6 axes? Well, I already have one in my permanent collection that I keep on the wall here. I probably have shown this one before. This is kind of a Kit Carson kind of thing that Bill did for me. So you can see this one's a Bridgeport. And then we have this Western sheath knife that he redid for me as well. So this one I've had for quite a while and just sits on the shelf there. That's kind of my personal, one that I sort of look at every day and I'm like, yeah, sharpen the axe. That's kind of what I do. I don't chop wood with this, but anyways, I love that one. It sits right there next to my desk. So what am I going to do with these 6 axes? Well, you know what I have never done with these axes that I've gotten back from Bill? I have never sold one. Not that I'm against it, not that I think it would be heresy to do so, telling people the story and stuff. But what I have done in the past, especially when I was a summer camp director, is I gave these out at the end of the year as thank you gifts to my area directors and key leaders in camp. And so literally, I want to say one summer, it might have been the summer of 2022 or 2023, I can't quite remember. I think it was 2022. I literally gave away probably a dozen of these hand axes that Bill had done to different people in my summer camp crew. And so I'm not a summer camp director anymore, so I can't really repeat that. But anyways, I'll have some really cool items. Another group that I've been kind of secretly waiting on is I was a Cub Scout den leader for 5 years. We became the King Cobra Patrol. That was a lot of fun. My son was in the den, and those boys now, most of them are still in Scouts, and they're in Troop 33 in Charlotte, and working towards their Eagle. So I kind of know that I want to save. I don't know this specific axe, but these axes I've gotten from Bill that I'd like to have something really nice to take to their Eagle Scout Court of Honor and present them. And so that's kind of where this type of thing I think is sort of a really cool like Eagle Scout gift, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm thinking I want to do. Again, I'm just kind of in love with this one. I saw Bill showed me all of the, along the way what he was doing with it. So I might keep this guy just for myself. I gave my daughter one. She was pretty, she's a Philmont Ranger, and she wanted one, so I gave her one. And so that's kind of a gift item. Something that I think it's just a cool piece. Something that's kind of original. That's kind of special. So, anyways, I'll if you're interested in reaching out to Bill, I'll be glad to privately share his contact information. I don't want to put it all out on the YouTube Vibe for everyone to spam him. But he does do this. He's retired and such, and so he does this as kind of like a little passion hobby. And but I think he does really cool work. Um, what do I have in these? You might be curious. So I think I probably spent. I think it cost me about a little over $100 to buy the 6 raw axes from the guy in Amarillo plus shipping. And then I think for Bill, it ended up being a couple hundred, $300 or something to get all this done. So all in, I'm probably somewhere around $75 for each axe, what I have invested in it, which I think is a great bargain to have a really super cool gift item that I can then share out. This is, again, very unique. This is just my little personal thing that I geek out about. And, I don't know. Everybody has their thing, right? Thanks very much for watching. Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper.